She arrived wrapped in a golden carpet, carried into the most powerful man's chambers like a precious gift from the gods themselves. But what happened next would reshape the entire Roman Empire and reveal seduction techniques so sophisticated that they still influence power dynamics today. The woman behind this legendary entrance wasn't just beautiful. She was a master strategist who understood something about human psychology that most people never discover. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the most powerful men in history couldn't resist her, and how her methods went far beyond anything you've ever heard about Cleopatra. Before we dive into this story, I want to make a quick invitation. If you're new to the channel and want to follow more content like this, go ahead and subscribe here and leave a like to help the channel grow and continue bringing more quality content to you. Now, let's get back to the story. The Mediterranean breeze carries whispers of a woman whose very name still commands reverence and fascination after 2,000 years. Alexandria, 69 before Christ. The greatest library in the ancient world stands as a beacon of knowledge. Its scrolls containing secrets of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy that would be lost for centuries. Here, in this crossroads between Africa, Asia, and Europe, a child is born who will grow to understand power in ways that transcend physical beauty or royal bloodlines. Every person alive has felt the magnetic pull of charisma, that inexplicable force that draws us towards certain individuals who seem to possess an almost supernatural ability to captivate and convince. Cleopatra VII didn't just possess this quality. She weaponized it with the precision of a military campaign and the elegance of high art. Her targets weren't ordinary men seeking romance. They were Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, rulers whose decisions shaped the fate of millions, whose word could raise armies or level cities. The mystery that has puzzled historians for millennia isn't whether Cleopatra was beautiful. Ancient sources suggest she was attractive, but not extraordinarily so. The real enigma lies in discovering how she managed to forge alliances so powerful that they nearly changed the course of Western civilization. These weren't simple love affairs. They were masterclasses in psychological manipulation, political strategy, and the art of making the impossible seem inevitable. What she accomplished defied every convention of her time. A woman ruling in a man's world. An Egyptian pharaoh commanding respect from Roman senators. A descendant of Alexander the Great's general who managed to seduce the inheritors of Alexander's greatest rival. The techniques she employed revealed timeless truths about influence, desire, and the hidden mechanisms that drive human behavior at the highest levels of power. But to understand how she achieved what no other ruler of her era could accomplish, we need to step into the sandals of a young princess who inherited a crumbling kingdom and transformed herself into the most formidable woman in ancient history. Alexandria, 51 before Christ. The morning sun illuminates the marble steps of the great library as 18-year-old Cleopatra walks toward her destiny. The air tastes of salt from the Mediterranean, mixed with papyrus ink and the incense burning in temples dedicated to gods both Egyptian and Greek. This city, founded by Alexander the Great over 2.5 centuries earlier, represents everything her family has built and everything she now stands to lose. The Ptolemaic dynasty has ruled Egypt for 300 years, but their grip on power grows weaker with each generation. Cleopatra's ancestors were Macedonian Greeks who came to Egypt as conquerors and stayed as pharaohs. They maintained their bloodline through sister-brother marriages, creating a royal family that was simultaneously Egyptian in authority and Greek in culture. Now, as Rome's influence spreads across the Mediterranean like spilled wine on white marble, Egypt teeters between independence and becoming another Roman province. Her father, Ptolemy XII, died leaving behind a kingdom drowning in debt to Roman moneylenders. The traditional Egyptian priesthood questions her legitimacy. The people of Alexandria, accustomed to prosperity and abundance, watch their harvests flow toward Rome as tribute. Most dangerously of all, her younger brother Ptolemy XIII stands ready to claim the throne for himself, backed by ambitious advisors who see her as an obstacle to their own power. But Cleopatra possesses advantages that neither her enemies nor even her allies fully comprehend. While other royal children learned only Greek, she mastered 9 languages, including Egyptian hieroglyphs, becoming the first Ptolemaic ruler in 3 centuries who could speak directly to her native subjects. She spent her youth not in pampered isolation but studying philosophy with the greatest minds in Alexandria, learning rhetoric from masters who had trained Roman senators, and absorbing the mathematical precision that built the pyramids alongside the strategic thinking that conquered half the known world. Her education extended far beyond books and scrolls. She learned to read faces, to detect deception in a glance, to project confidence even when surrounded by enemies. The priests of Isis taught her the ancient mysteries that made pharaohs divine in the eyes of their people. Greek tutors showed her how democracy and debate could be weapons more powerful than swords. Roman merchants, eager for favorable trade agreements, revealed the psychological weaknesses of their powerful patrons back home. The civil war with her brother begins almost immediately after their father's death. Ptolemy XIII's forces control Alexandria and most of Lower Egypt. Cleopatra finds herself exiled, leading a small army through the desert sands of Upper Egypt, her royal regalia replaced by the practical leather and bronze of a military commander. But even in retreat, she demonstrates a quality that will define her entire reign: the ability to turn apparent weakness into unexpected strength. Her first display of genius comes not through military victory but through theater. Rather than launching a hopeless assault on Alexandria's walls, she devises a plan that will become legendary. She arranges to meet with Julius Caesar, the Roman general whose army has just arrived in Alexandria pursuing his rival Pompey, but not as a desperate exile begging for help. Instead, she choreographs an entrance that demonstrates every aspect of the psychological mastery she will later use to seduce emperors. The golden carpet arrival isn't just dramatic staging. It's a calculated demonstration of courage, intelligence, and mystique designed to bypass Caesar's rational defenses and appeal directly to his subconscious mind. She arrives as Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, literally delivered like a divine gift. She speaks to Caesar in perfect Latin, showing respect for his culture while maintaining her own regal dignity. She presents herself as an equal partner offering alliance, not a suppliant seeking mercy. Caesar, at 52 years old, has met every type of ruler, diplomat, and seductress in the Mediterranean world. He has conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, and defeated Pompey's superior forces through pure strategic brilliance. Nothing in his experience has prepared him for a woman who combines physical allure with intellectual sophistication, political necessity with personal magnetism, and the exotic mystery of ancient Egypt with the practical realities of Roman power. But what happens next reveals the true scope of Cleopatra's abilities. She doesn't simply capture Caesar's attention. She keeps it by proving herself indispensable not just as a lover but as a strategic asset whose value increases with every passing day. But what Nannonian expected was that her methods would prove so sophisticated that they would fundamentally change how Romans understood the relationship between East and West, between conqueror and conquered, between the rational world of politics and the mysterious realm of desire that drives all human ambition. The palace chambers in Alexandria become a classroom where Cleopatra teaches Julius Caesar lessons he never learned in his conquest of Gaul. While Roman historians will later claim that she seduced him through beauty and exotic pleasures, the truth reveals far more sophisticated psychological warfare. She understands that powerful men, accustomed to being courted and flattered, respond most strongly to women who challenge their assumptions while making them feel more intelligent and capable than they already believe themselves to be. Caesar arrives in Egypt expecting to collect tribute and settle a simple dynastic dispute. Instead, he finds himself drawn into conversations that last until dawn, debates about philosophy and governance that stimulate his mind in ways that Roman politics, with its predictable machinations, no longer can. Cleopatra speaks to him about the mathematics behind pyramid construction, the astronomical calculations that govern Nile floods, the administrative systems that have kept Egypt prosperous for 3,000 years. She doesn't present this knowledge as feminine accomplishment seeking male approval. She shares it as one ruler discussing statecraft with another. Her first major revelation comes during their third meeting. Caesar mentions his frustration with Roman grain supplies, the constant challenge of feeding a growing population that depends on imports from distant provinces. Cleopatra responds by showing him detailed records of Egyptian agricultural production, harvest predictions based on Nile flooding patterns, and distribution networks that could supply Rome more efficiently than current arrangements. She transforms herself from potential romantic conquest into essential strategic partner. But her most brilliant psychological insight involves understanding Caesar's deepest insecurity. At 52, he feels the weight of time pressing against his ambitions. Alexander the Great had conquered most of the known world by age 30. Caesar, despite his military genius and political success, still chases the ghost of that legendary achievement. Cleopatra recognizes this hunger and feeds it by positioning their alliance as the foundation for an empire that would surpass even Alexander's conquests. She reveals maps showing trade routes that could connect Britain to India, spanning 3 continents under unified rule. She describes the wealth that flows through Alexandria: spices from Arabia, silk from distant China, gold from the heart of Africa, and how Roman military power combined with Egyptian commercial networks could create unprecedented prosperity. Most intoxicatingly, she speaks of their potential children as heirs to both Caesar's Roman legacy and her Egyptian divine authority, ruling an empire that would make the gods themselves envious. The birth of Caesarion 9 months later cements this vision in flesh and blood. But Cleopatra's genius extends beyond using pregnancy to secure a political alliance. She understands that Caesar needs to return to Rome to consolidate his power, and she prepares for separation by making herself indispensable to his future plans rather than clinging to his immediate presence. She sends gifts to key Roman senators, establishes communication networks with Caesar's allies, and begins learning Latin poetry so she can correspond with him in verses that appeal to his intellectual vanity. When Caesar is assassinated in 44 before Christ, Cleopatra faces her greatest test. Her protector is dead, her son's legitimacy questioned, and Egypt once again vulnerable to Roman appetite. But rather than retreating into defensive isolation, she analyzes the new power structure emerging from Roman civil war and identifies the man most likely to emerge victorious: Marcus Antonius, known as Mark Antony. Antony presents a completely different psychological profile than Caesar. Where Caesar was intellectually curious and strategically methodical, Antony is emotionally passionate and instinctively theatrical. Where Caesar appreciated subtle flattery and sophisticated conversation, Antony responds to grand gestures and sensual pleasure. Cleopatra adapts her approach accordingly, demonstrating psychological flexibility that reveals the true depth of her strategic thinking. The famous meeting on the river Cydnus becomes her masterpiece of psychological manipulation. She doesn't simply arrive in luxury. She creates a floating fantasy that appeals to every aspect of Antony's personality. The golden barge with purple sails speaks to his love of wealth and display. The costume of Aphrodite transforms political negotiation into mythological romance. The perfumed atmosphere and musical accompaniment overwhelm his senses while trained attendants, dressed as sea nymphs and cupids, create an experience that blurs the line between reality and divine intervention. But the true genius lies in what happens after the pageantry ends. Once Antony is sufficiently impressed by the spectacle, Cleopatra reveals her real gift: the ability to make him feel like the hero of his own epic poem. She doesn't position herself as a prize to be won, but as a goddess choosing her champion. She speaks of their alliance as destined by the gods, their joint rule as the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, their love as cosmic force that will reshape the world. Antony, who has always lived in Caesar's shadow and struggled with feeling like a secondary figure in Roman history, suddenly finds himself cast as the lead character in a drama worthy of Homer. Cleopatra feeds his ego while challenging his ambition, offering him not just pleasure but the chance to achieve glory that will eclipse even Caesar's accomplishments. She promises him Egypt's wealth, Alexandria's knowledge, and the opportunity to rule an empire spanning from Britain to India. The psychological trap she sets is perfectly calibrated to Antony's weaknesses. She makes him feel simultaneously worshipped and challenged, desired and necessary, powerful and dependent. She creates a world where his Roman identity enhances rather than conflicts with his role as her chosen consort, where his military skills serve purposes greater than mere conquest, where his capacity for pleasure becomes evidence of divine favor rather than personal weakness. However, what was about to happen would surpass all expectations and reveal secrets that had remained hidden for millennia. Secrets about the true nature of power, desire, and the hidden forces that determine the fate of empires. The Battle of Actium in 31 before Christ becomes the ultimate test of everything Cleopatra has built through 2 decades of psychological mastery. But the real battle isn't fought on the waters off the Greek coast. It's fought in the minds and hearts of 2 lovers who must choose between personal desire and political survival. The climactic moment reveals the most profound secret of Cleopatra's power: her ability to make even defeat serve her larger strategic purposes. As Octavian's fleet closes in, Cleopatra faces a choice that will define her legacy for all time. She could retreat to Alexandria and extend the war for years, drawing upon Egypt's vast resources and her people's loyalty. Instead, she makes a decision that appears to be pure emotional weakness but actually represents the culmination of her strategic genius. She withdraws from the battle, knowing that Antony will follow her, effectively handing victory to Octavian while preserving something far more valuable than military triumph. The secret she understood, and that historians would debate for centuries, lies in recognizing that some defeats create more lasting power than victories. By choosing love over conquest, by demonstrating that even the mightiest Roman general would abandon empire for her sake, she achieves something no military victory could provide. She becomes immortal in human imagination. She transforms herself from a defeated queen into an eternal symbol of irresistible feminine power. The final act in Alexandria reveals the true scope of her psychological sophistication. As Octavian's forces surround the city, Cleopatra orchestrates her death with the same theatrical brilliance she brought to seducing emperors. But this isn't simple suicide. It's her final masterpiece of psychological manipulation, designed to influence not just her immediate enemies but every generation that would follow. She chooses the ASP, sacred to Isis, ensuring her death carries religious significance that makes her a martyred goddess rather than a defeated ruler. She dresses in her royal regalia, positioning herself as a pharaoh meeting death on her own terms rather than a captive awaiting Roman triumph. Most brilliantly, she times her suicide to deny Octavian the propaganda victory of parading her through Roman streets, instead forcing him to explain to the Roman people why he couldn't capture alive the woman who had enchanted their greatest generals. But the deepest secret of her power emerges in the final moments. Ancient sources describe her last words as instructions to her servants about ensuring her story would be told correctly. Even facing death, she thinks not about personal fear or regret but about narrative control. She understands that whoever controls the story controls how future generations understand the meaning of events. She has spent her entire reign not just seducing emperors but seducing history itself. The revelation that has taken scholars 2,000 years to fully appreciate is that Cleopatra's real genius lay in understanding something modern psychology has only recently discovered. Human beings make decisions emotionally and then rationalize them intellectually. Every technique she employed, from the golden carpet entrance to the mythological pageantry on the Cydnus River, was designed to bypass rational analysis and appeal directly to subconscious desire. She understood that powerful men, accustomed to being courted for their wealth and position, craved something deeper. They wanted to feel chosen by destiny itself. She didn't offer Caesar and Antony mere political alliance or physical pleasure. She offered them mythological significance, the chance to see themselves as heroes worthy of epic poetry, as men chosen by the gods for purposes greater than ordinary human ambition. Her methods reveal timeless principles about influence and persuasion that remain relevant today. She never begged or demanded. She made her targets feel that helping her served their own deepest desires. She never competed on her enemies' terms. She changed the rules of engagement to favor her unique advantages. She never tried to be what others expected. She exceeded their expectations in unexpected directions. Most profoundly, she understood that true seduction isn't about making someone want you. It's about making someone become a better version of themselves when they're with you. Caesar felt more brilliant, more visionary, more historically significant when he was planning their joint empire. Antony felt more heroic, more divinely favored, more worthy of legendary status when he was fighting for their love. The archaeological evidence discovered in recent decades confirms what ancient sources hinted at but never fully explained. Cleopatra maintained extensive correspondence with philosophers, mathematicians, and scholars throughout the Mediterranean world. She funded scientific research, sponsored artistic works, and collected intelligence about Roman politics with the systematic thoroughness of a modern intelligence agency. Her seductions of Caesar and Antony weren't isolated romantic episodes. They were components of a comprehensive strategy to preserve Egyptian independence through psychological rather than military means. The final secret, perhaps the most remarkable of all, concerns her ultimate success. While military historians classify her as a defeated ruler whose kingdom became a Roman province, cultural historians recognize her as one of the most successful leaders in human history. She achieved something no pharaoh before her ever accomplished. She made Egypt immortal in human consciousness. 2,000 years after her death, her name still represents the pinnacle of feminine power, intelligence, and allure. Every technique she pioneered, understanding psychological profiles, appealing to ego and ambition, creating memorable experiences, controlling narrative interpretation, has been rediscovered by modern experts in persuasion, marketing, and political communication. She anticipated by 2 millennia insights about human psychology that we now teach in universities and boardrooms. The truth about what Cleopatra really did to seduce emperors reveals something profound about the nature of power itself. The greatest victories aren't won through force but through understanding what people truly desire and showing them how to achieve it. She didn't conquer Rome through military might. She conquered Roman imagination through psychological mastery that continues to influence how we understand charisma, leadership, and the eternal dance between desire and power. What emerged from Alexandria in those final moments wasn't just the death of Egypt's last pharaoh, but the birth of a legend that would prove more durable than any empire and more influential than any military conquest. Standing in the ruins of ancient Alexandria today, archaeologists uncover fragments of papyrus that still bear traces of Cleopatra's correspondence with scholars across the Mediterranean. These discoveries remind us that behind every legend lies a human being whose intelligence, ambition, and understanding of human nature created ripples that continue to shape our world 2 millennia later. The story we followed reveals something profound about the nature of true influence. Cleopatra's power didn't stem from inherited wealth, military force, or even extraordinary beauty. Her greatest weapon was something far more sophisticated: the ability to see people not as they were, but as they dreamed of becoming. She understood that the most irresistible form of seduction isn't physical attraction. It's making someone feel like the best version of themselves when they're in your presence. Every technique she mastered remains relevant in our modern world. Business leaders study her methods of reading psychological profiles and adapting communication styles. Negotiators analyze her approach to turning apparent weakness into unexpected strength. Politicians examine how she controlled narratives to influence public perception. Her insights about appealing to ego while challenging ambition appear in contemporary books about persuasion, leadership, and personal magnetism. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of her legacy lies in how she redefined what it means to achieve victory. While military commanders measure success through conquered territory and defeated enemies, Cleopatra achieved something far more enduring. She conquered human imagination itself, creating a story so compelling that it has inspired countless works of art, literature, and drama across every civilization that followed. The Egyptian queen, who spoke 9 languages and understood the mathematics behind pyramid construction, teaches us that true intelligence involves more than academic knowledge. It requires emotional wisdom, cultural sensitivity, and the rare ability to make complex ideas accessible to others. She succeeded because she never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never stopped believing that understanding people was the key to changing the world. Her methods also reveal timeless truths about human relationships. Whether in personal friendships, professional partnerships, or romantic connections, the principles she employed remain powerful. Listen more than you speak, understand what people truly want rather than what they say they need, create memorable experiences that exceed expectations, and always treat others as capable of greatness even when they doubt themselves. The final lesson from Cleopatra's story might be the most important of all. In a world that often emphasizes competition over collaboration, she demonstrated that the greatest achievements come from making others feel more powerful rather than less. She didn't diminish Caesar or Antony to elevate herself. She expanded their sense of possibility and helped them envision futures greater than anything they had previously imagined. Today, when we face challenges that require cooperation across cultural boundaries, when we need leaders who can inspire rather than merely command, when success increasingly depends on emotional intelligence rather than traditional authority, Cleopatra's example becomes more relevant than ever. She proved that understanding human psychology isn't manipulation. It's the foundation of genuine leadership. The woman who arrived wrapped in a golden carpet and departed in royal regalia, choosing death over defeat, leaves us with a question that echoes across the centuries. In our own lives, are we content to be remembered for what we conquered, or do we aspire to be remembered for what we inspired others to become? Stories like this show us that the past is more alive than we imagine, and each discovery about figures like Cleopatra reveals new insights about the timeless human qualities that create lasting influence and meaningful change. If you made it this far and aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe now, leave a like, and share in the comments what surprised you most about Cleopatra's real methods of influence. And until the next video,